Rise today to announce I will be impeaching Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Secretary Noem has violated the Constitution, and she needs to be held accountable for terrorizing our communities. Operation Midway Blitz has torn apart the Chicagoland area. President Trump declared war on Chicago, and then he brought violence and destruction to our city and our suburbs in the form of immigration enforcement. In my district, federal agents rappelled down from Black Hawk helicopters and burst into an apartment building in the South Shore area. They dragged U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike out of their beds in the middle of the night. They claimed the apartment was infiltrated by members of a Venezuelan gang. I don't understand this president's obsession with Venezuela, but they did not arrest a single member from that gang. I visited that apartment building and saw firsthand the destruction those agents left. Doors to people's homes or apartments were kicked down. Belongings, including little kids' toys, were strewn about in the hallway. That raid and so many others shook our community, not just immigrants, but everyone. Now Secretary Noem has brought her reign of terror to Minneapolis after she left Charlotte and Raleigh. We have all seen what happened. An ICE officer shot and killed Renee Nicole Good in cold blood. Without knowing any of the facts or an investigation, Secretary Noem lied about what happened. She called her beloved 37-year-old mom a domestic terrorist. Secretary Noem and her rogue agents are the ones terrorizing our communities, and she is breaking the law to do so. I will hold her accountable, and I'm filing 3 articles of impeachment against Secretary Noem. Number 1, obstruction of Congress. Secretary Noem has denied me and other members of Congress oversight of ICE detention facilities. It is our constitutional duty to find out what's happening in these centers where people are reportedly being treated like less than animals. 2, violation of public trust. Secretary Noem directed ICE agents to arrest people without warrants, use tear gas against citizens, and ignore due process. She claims she's taken murderers and rapists off our streets, but none of the 614 people arrested during Operation Midway Blitz has been charged or convicted of murder or rape. 3, self-dealing. Secretary Noem has abused her power for personal benefit. She steered a federal contract to a new firm run by a friend, her friend. Her propaganda campaign to recruit ICE agents cost taxpayers $200 million. She made a video that turned the South Shore raid into something that looked more like a movie trailer. But make no mistake, this is not a movie. This is real life, and real people are being hurt and killed. I really have to wonder who are the people behind the mask. These DHS agents have no identifying factor. From all their botched raids and officer-involved shootings, I have to ask, what is their training like? What is the vetting? Is Secretary Noem recruiting January 6th insurrectionists? I was one of the last members of Congress to escape the House gallery on January 6th. I remember hiding on my hands and knees and running through the hallways to a safe room. Insurrectionists are not fit to serve as law enforcement. I realize that impeachment of Secretary Noem does not bring Renee back. True justice would be Renee alive today, at home with her family. Impeachment doesn't bring back the 4 other people killed by immigration officers this year, including a man in Chicago. We could not bring them back to their loved ones. What we can do, though, is impeach Secretary Noem, hold her accountable, let her know the public is watching. In this country, we do not kill people in cold blood without consequences. These are not policy disagreements. These are violations of her oath of office, and she must answer for her impeachable actions. I yield back.
The chair. What you just watched wasn't simply a passionate speech on the House floor. It was a constitutional alarm going off in real time. Representative Robin Kelly stepped forward and did something lawmakers almost never do. She announced articles of impeachment against a sitting Secretary of Homeland Security. That doesn't happen over policy disagreements or political theater. It happens when members of Congress believe the most basic duties of government have been violated. Kelly's case is deliberate and expansive. She isn't arguing ideology. She's arguing conduct. Her claim is that Secretary Kristi Noem crossed lines that exist to protect civil liberties, preserve congressional oversight, and maintain public trust. Those aren't abstract principles. They're the guardrails that keep federal power from being abused. To understand the seriousness of her accusation, Kelly lays out a clear pattern. She starts with Operation Midway Blitz, which she describes not as a focused law enforcement action guided by intelligence, but as a sweeping militarized raid that sent shockwaves through entire communities. Black Hawk helicopters overhead, armed agents forcing entry into homes, families pulled from their beds in the middle of the night, children's rooms torn apart. And after all of that force, all of that disruption, not a single member of the alleged gang was arrested. That's the point Kelly is driving home. When the government uses overwhelming force without results, it doesn't inspire confidence. It breeds fear and distrust. And once that trust is broken, law enforcement loses legitimacy in the very communities it claims to protect. Kelly then turns to Minneapolis and the killing of Renee Nicole Good. According to Kelly, before investigators had time to establish verified facts, Secretary Noem publicly labeled the victim a domestic terrorist. That label matters. When a government official assigns guilt before due process, it shapes public perception and frames the narrative before evidence is even gathered. It signals that the story is already written. Kelly's warning is stark but precise. When narrative overtakes truth, accountability collapses, and when lethal force is justified before investigations conclude, the system begins protecting outcomes instead of seeking facts. The impeachment articles themselves reflect three distinct constitutional failures: obstruction of Congress, for allegedly blocking lawmakers from conducting oversight of ICE detention facilities; violation of public trust, through tactics like warrantless arrests and force used against people not charged with violent crimes; and self-dealing, where Kelly alleges public funds were used for contracts benefiting allies and for propaganda-style productions designed to sell fear rather than transparency. What ties all of this together is accountability. Kelly isn't asking whether these actions were effective. She's asking whether they were lawful, whether federal power is being exercised within constitutional limits or shielded from scrutiny, whether oversight is respected or treated as an obstacle. That's why this moment matters beyond any single official. This isn't just about Kristi Noem. It's about what kind of country we choose to be. A country where power answers to the people, or one where explanations come only after the damage is done. Democratic accountability doesn't enforce itself. It requires attention, pressure, and a public willing to question narratives that move faster than the facts. And by any measure, this story is far from over. If you want more clear, fact-driven breakdowns like this, make sure you're subscribed. These stories don't end when the cameras turn off, and neither should the scrutiny.